Nebraska's defensive coordinator Tony White has left for Florida State. So now it's time for the Huskers to make a move of their own. Today's video, I'm going to go over 5 huge Nebraska defensive coordinator targets, and I'm going to go over who they are, what they bring to the table, and why I believe they are big possibilities for the Big Red. So really quick, we have a lot to talk about. Make sure to hit that like button if you're fired up about whoever our next defensive coordinator is. And really quick, I post daily Nebraska football content, and we're on the road to 8,000 subscribers. So if you're a diehard fan of this program and you want to stay in tune with breaking news talking about your favorite team, make sure to hit that subscribe button. You will be thanking yourself that you did. But without further ado, let's get into it, going over the biggest targets to be Nebraska's next defensive coordinator after, of course, Tony White left to Florida State. I want to start things off with the guy that's arguably the most wanted out of all of the options. In my opinion, the best hire Nebraska can make. Jim Leonhard, past defensive coordinator at the Wisconsin Badgers, now with the Denver Broncos as a defensive backs coach. But this is a guy who was incredible over his time with Wisconsin, and he's only 42 years old. In 2021 as a defensive coordinator with the Badgers, they had the third best defense in all of college football. And if you talk to any Wisconsin fan, they loved this guy. They did not want him to leave when Luke Fickell got hired. He's an elite developer. He's an aggressive coach. He's a really, really good recruiter. And he's a guy that has his best days of coaching ahead of him. I think what's paramount when Matt Rhule makes this hire is he tries to get a younger guy who has the future of being a head coach. I don't want an old, guy who's been a head coach in the past and has his best days of coaching behind him. I want a guy who is an up-and-comer. Jim Leonhard is absolutely an up-and-comer. And you know what else? He knows how to win in the Big Ten. He was 4-2 against the Iowa Hawkeyes. He was an interim head coach with Wisconsin and had a lot of success, had a winning record. This guy knows what it takes to play physical Big Ten football, dominate the line of scrimmage, have a great secondary, get turnovers. I mean, just an absolute home run hire if Nebraska can make this possible. This is the first guy I would call if I'm Matt Rhule. Again, he has a track record of great defenses, getting guys to the NFL, and being productive. And he's also a guy who has his best days of coaching, I believe, still ahead of him. Should be noted with Jim Leonhard, he runs the 3-4 defense. I know a lot of people are going to ask about that, what defense these guys runs. He runs the 3-4. So that's the guy that I want the most. Let's get into another target for Nebraska's defensive coordinator spot. This is a very high upside candidate who I honestly wouldn't be shocked if Nebraska tried to get. This is Elijah Robinson. So if this name sounds familiar, it should. Nebraska was trying to hire him when Matt Rhule got here to be our defensive line coach. At that point in time, he was the D-line coach over there at the Texas Aggies, or Texas A&M Aggies. He is now with Syracuse as a defensive coordinator. Elijah Robinson is one of those up-and-comer stud coaches around college football. Texas A&M fans love him. Syracuse fans love him. One of the best defensive line coaches in college football. Very, very good recruiter. And he also has a lot of connections with Matt Rhule. He was in that Matt Rhule coaching tree at Temple. Matt Rhule actually hired him. He's only 39 years old. Again, his best days of coaching still ahead of him. So, I truly believe this would be a good hire for Nebraska. Now, he's in his first year as defensive coordinator at Syracuse. Struggled a little bit, didn't have a great defense. I'm going to be completely honest with you, but it wasn't his fault. Against his only year one with him at Syracuse, I expect him to be a really good defensive coordinator. There is a little bit of risk involved because he doesn't have too much of a history of defensive coordinator, but one thing you could take to the bank about Elijah Robinson is that he's a phenomenal recruiter. He has a lot of ties to Texas and the East Coast. He's a physical coach, and he's an up-and-comer, but there is a little bit of risk specifically at that defensive coordinator spot. So that's another guy. There's going to be a lot of smoke around Elijah Robinson. Let's get into probably the most likely candidate out of all of them that Nebraska is going to hire. John Butler, the current secondary coach with the Huskers. Now, I wouldn't bet on this, but out of all the options, he's probably the leader in the clubhouse as of right now. When he was hired in July, it was with the intention that he was going to be the next defensive coordinator after Tony White left. Now, we thought that Tony White was going to leave for a head coaching spot. That was not the case, but it's still a fact that John Butler thought at the time when he was hired that he was going to be the next defensive coordinator in Nebraska. We'll see if that happens. John Butler, I'll say this about him. Again, he does have some experience at defensive coordinator. He was with Penn State back in 2013, only for 1 year. His defense within the Lions was okay. It was a little bit above average. Wasn't anything really to write home about. My big thing about John Butler is that I want to get the best defensive coordinator money can buy. I don't think John Butler fits that category, to be completely honest with you. Again, he was a secondary coach for Nebraska this year. The secondary was one of the worst units on the team for the Huskers. I don't really feel like promoting one of our worst positional coaches to that DC spot, and I get it. He was only here for a couple months before the season started, but still, I don't love that. He was average at Penn State as a defensive coordinator, really not too much experience at that DC spot. And when he was at Penn State, that was over a decade ago. The college football game has changed so much since then. The Big Ten has changed so much. Recruiting has changed so much. After that, he was in the NFL. So I don't know how much of a recruiter he is. I don't know if he's really built for the new modern day college football. But if I were to guess, this is going to be the hire. Not going to bet on it. I don't think I don't think it's set in stone, but out of all of them, this probably is the most likely. I think it's a meh hire if it happens, but we should mention him. So yeah. Goeff Collins is the next guy I want to mention, former Georgia Tech and Temple coach. Really good track record of success at that defensive coordinator spot. There's a lot of ties to Matt Rhule as well. He was actually Matt Rhule's successor at Temple. I know a lot of fans probably aren't too in love with this hire. Again, wasn't a good coach at Georgia Tech from all accounts, but he has a good past at that defensive coordinator spot. Had a top 10 defense at Florida when he was there. Again, he runs a 4-3. So Goeff Collins is a guy who has a little bit of smoke around him. I don't think his best days of coaching are ahead of him. I think they're probably gone. I don't know if he'll ever get another opportunity as a head coach, but should mention him because I really do believe he is a real threat to be hired here. Again, he was previously the defensive coordinator at North Carolina this past season. Again, we know that Mac Brown's out there, so safe to say he won't be back with the Tar Heels. Their defense was one of the worst in Power 5, so recent track record's not good for Goeff Collins, but a couple years ago was pretty good. So that's another name there. I don't know if I'd be in love with that hire, but he's certainly in the mix. Want to mention Ryan Walters here really quick because there's been a lot of conversation about Ryan Walters. Okay, Ryan Walters, of course, just fired from Purdue as a head coach. I really liked that hire initially for the Boilermakers. I thought he was going to work out. But, of course, really, really bad tenure. Didn't work out now in the coaching market. Should Nebraska hire him? I think Nebraska should at least give him an interview, to be completely honest with you. And yes, he failed at Purdue, and he's also said in the past he doesn't like Nebraska. He's a Colorado Buffalo. That's where he went to college. But the proof is in the pudding. And the truth behind the matter is that in 2022, as a defensive coordinator at Illinois, they had the second best defense in college football. That's unheard of. And he brought multiple guys to the NFL who are playing really, really good football right now on Sundays. Okay, their defense has been solid since then, but not to that level, not to that degree. Okay, Ryan Walters is a darn good defensive coordinator. And just because you're a good defensive coordinator doesn't mean you can be a good head coach. He's meant to be a defensive coordinator. Clearly not meant to be a coach. So I do think he deserves the interview. Now, will we hire him? Probably not. But again, he is very successful as a defensive coordinator. He knows how to win the Big Ten, knows how to get it done. I don't think it happens. But I think Nebraska would be stupid not to at least give this guy an interview and at least, test the waters there. So I want to talk about Ryan Walters. And so those are the guys really who I have my eyes out for, those 5 candidates. I would like either Elijah Robinson, of course, Jim Leonhard, but I think it'll probably be John Butler of all 5 of those. I should also talk about guys who we are not going to hire, literally 0%. There's been rumors around Bo Pelini. No, we are not hiring Bo Pelini. There's been rumors about Bill Busch. No, we are not hiring Bill Busch. And then people are also saying Phil Snow, who was hired to be an analyst. We are not promoting Phil Snow. Again, I think Matt Rhule appreciates Phil Snow as an analyst, but Phil Snow's 70-plus years old. This guy is not going to be our next defensive coordinator. He's going to probably stay on the staff as an analyst, though. So those are my 5. Let me know down below, who do you want the most out of the bunch? Is there a name that you want that I did not mention? Let me know in the comment section. Hey, if you made this far in the video, shout out to you. Road to 8,000 subscribers, posting daily content, so make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. All right, guys, let me know your thoughts. Go Big Red, go my Rhule, and see you in the next one.